York City, a city without a comp in the world. We are in the Big Apple for what has become an annual November showcase.
This is the place to see MMA. This is the most iconic arena in all of combat sports history, and tonight is a special night.
I have deep roots in New York City. The city can make you or break you. For me, it did both. I would walk by the Garden and look up at it and think to myself, one day I would fight there and win just like my grandfather did.
Jared Gordon's a total inspiration, and what he's dealt with en route to this UFC appearance tonight is nothing short of extraordinary.
Having the opportunity to fight here in New York City means something to Jared Gordon.
I was going to have my Madison Square Garden moment.
Oh, he heard him. Madison is down. That'll do it. He got it.
New York, you made me. My grandfather fought in the stadium 4 times. I used to shoot heroin in Penn Station underneath this building. Now I'm fighting in it and knocking guys out. You can do anything you want.
Welcome back to the Get Back Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This is where we bring you the greatest comeback stories by the biggest names. I'm Greg Kelly. I'm here with my co-host, Zeke Pike.
And today we're joined by mixed martial artist with a pro record of 26-1, an absolute pillar in the recovery community, an incredible get back story, and the future UFC lightweight champion of the world, my guy, Jared Flash Gordon. Welcome to the podcast, my brother.
Thank you
Welcome,
for having me.
So, man, I reached out to you. It's funny, when we first started this podcast, we were writing a list of guests who I specifically wanted on this show. And I've heard your story. I've seen you around the community and friends that I have. And your willingness to just say yes the second I asked you shows how important your story is and your message is and how impactful that has the ability to be for other people. So for our audience that's here, man, who is Jared Gordon outside of the ring, and what's your journey been like to get to the ring?
Who is Jared Gordon? I am a son, a brother, a husband, a friend. I'm also a sexual assault victim, covering drug addict, ex-criminal, and that basically sums up who I am.
So that journey, man, so you grew up in Queens, right?
I grew up in New York. I lived in Long Island for the first 13 years of my life, and then the next 13 or 14 years I lived in Astoria, Queens.
And was fighting always, was it?
Fighting was always a part of my life. My grandfather was a pro boxer. A lot of people in my family were either boxers or wrestlers. And then I boxed and wrestled as a kid. And then, being in New York and Queens, like fighting on the street was always a thing for us. In Long Island too, that's what we did. We just fought the other kids. But we were just knuckleheads, having fun.
Yeah.
And I graduated high school, and that's when I started training. I was 17. I turned 18 the following September after graduating school, and I've been fighting ever since.
Did you grow up with any siblings as well?
Yes. I have an older brother, Dylan, who's also in recovery, and I have a younger brother, Dean, who learned from both of his moronic older brothers not to do drugs.
Yeah.
So you gave him the blueprint of what not to do. I gave my little brother the same exact thing. But I want to go back a little bit because I want to let you tell your story a little bit, because there's something that we both have in common in some of the experiences that we shared as kids and how that maybe affected and kind of deeded our life in a little bit. And I know you've been open and willing to share that and let that be a part of your story. But I think it says something to who you are as a man and your willingness to share that, because me being a sexual assault victim, somebody who dealt with that as a young age, it took me many years to come to grips with what that actually meant and how that really affected my life. And I'm curious to know your perspective on what that event was. And again, I'll let you tell the story a little bit, but I'm assuming it shaped your life for a couple of years and how it shaped mine for some years as well.
Yeah, definitely made me who I am today. I went to a sleepaway camp when I was 8 years old in Pennsylvania in the Poconos, and I was sexually assaulted by a male counselor there. And yeah, looking back at it, I could definitely say that I unconsciously was self-medicating to bury that pain. And, before I found drugs and alcohol, I definitely used other ways to hide it or to just make those thoughts and feelings go away. And I just stuffed it at first. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell any of my friends or my brothers. And shortly after that happened, I came home from camp at the end of summer, turned 9 that September, school started. And shortly after that, I began smoking weed and like dabbling with alcohol, stealing beers or stealing like shots out of my parents' liquor cabinet, smoking cigarettes, stealing a cigarette from my dad and like running into the woods by my house, just being like a kid.
Yeah.
But I had, my older brother Dylan, he's 20 months older than me. And then we had some family friends who were about 3-4 years older than us. So they were like 13, 14. So they were smoking weed. And we hung out every day after school.
Right.
So, you are who you hang around with, right? You do what your friends do. So I started smoking pot. And like I said, it turned into other drugs and alcohol. And at first it was all just fun and games,
Right.
Having fun. But I definitely wanted to not feel the way I was feeling. And I definitely wanted to get outside myself because I hated how I felt without substances.
Do you think you understood that at the time?
No, no way.
Because I think like,
9.
I thought the same thing. Like I'm doing this because again, I always kind of hung out with older kids as well. And when I look back, it was like, I just kind of also wanted to be cool. Like I wanted to kind of fit in with them as well. But I think when I first dabbled with that, for me, it was smoking pot as well. When I first dabbled with that, I felt like I found something that at least put me in a different state for the time being that made me feel like I didn't have to, feel whatever this feeling I was feeling. I don't even really know if I knew what that was at the time.
Yeah, I definitely really couldn't connect the two. And it took me years to even realize, decades, that I was trying to, just feel different. And I also just liked getting high.
Yeah.
I like to have fun, and that's what my friends were doing. I thought that's what was cool. And then, turning 12, 13, 14, 15, I'm getting older, high school comes, now it's all just about partying, and I didn't really start learning much about myself and how I acted and why I did the things I did until I started going to like AA, going to rehab, and, learning from other people that have been there and done that.
Did you start, at what point during that? I know, of course, right now you're a mixed martial artist, right? You're a professional fighter. We're going to rewind, of course. But at what point did you feel like you needed to aspire for something more? Like other than just getting high and going through that, when did the shift happen in your childhood?
When I was a young kid, I always had this feeling in my gut that there was something bigger. And I remember like going to school and thinking like, this isn't for me. Like, even like later in middle school and then high school, I was like, school is not it. Like, yeah, obviously kids need to go to school.
Right.
And I had to get an education and graduate high school or whatever, which I did. But I knew that like being the typical high school graduate, trying to do well in the SATs or doing well in school, and then going into college, that wasn't for me. And I always had this feeling that something was bigger. There was something bigger for me, and I didn't know what it was. And I directed that energy and I put it into the wrong things. I thought, it's funny actually, thinking back, like I was like, I'm gonna like sell drugs and get rich and like open businesses or start companies or something like that. And I really felt like that was something that was possible. And I did really well. I had older influences in my life that taught me how to sell drugs. And I knew that as a kid, like I really couldn't get in trouble. Yeah, I could like go to juvie or, you know, but I wouldn't be doing like extended periods of time in prison.
Right.
Because I was a minor.
Yeah.
So like I took advantage of that and I sold drugs for years. And I remember like when I moved to Queens and I used to have to take the subway to school every morning. So I would get up in the morning, 6 o'clock, whatever it was, 7 o'clock, leave my house by 7:30, walk a mile and a half to the subway in Queens, New York, get on the subway and go to school. And I remember like always putting my headphones on and just like, it's just funny. I remember Get Rich or Die Trying came out, 50 Cent.
Yeah.
And I remember putting on like Hustler Ambition or any of those songs and like walking to school and being like, I'm gonna do some fucking ill shit. Like I ain't fuck school. Like,
Yeah.
and I would skip school and like I was trying to figure out how I was gonna get to the next level or what I thought was the next level. So like that shift that you were talking about was I always had that in me to aspire, like, like you said, to do something bigger.
Yeah.
So like I knew college wasn't for me and I knew just like doing what everyone else did wasn't what I wanted to do. And when I graduated school, I was already going down the wrong path. Selling drugs, partying, getting high, whatever. And I found an MMA gym. And at the time, the UFC was blowing up. It was 2006 or 2000. Yeah, just 2006. Graduated high school in 2006. The Ultimate Fighter was
Yeah.
It was
like
the new
really making
sport.
waves at the
Yeah.
time. Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner, they had the Ultimate Fighter finale and they put on like one hell of a show. And that's when the UFC blew up because everyone was tuning into this
The show.
reality show. And then they had this fight and it just blew it up. And I remember Frankie Edgar made his UFC debut against Tyson Griffin that year. And I remember thinking like, man, if this guy can do it, he's like a little guy, from New Jersey. He's like 5'6", like, similar stature as me. And I remember thinking like, if he can do it, I can do this. And I just so happened to like come out of the subway one day in Queens and I looked up and there was an MMA gym and it was there the whole time and I had no idea because I just didn't look.
Pay attention.
And I walked in there and I signed up for jiu-jitsu and that was it. I took my first jiu-jitsu class and I fell in love with the sport. I had my first amateur fight 4 months later and I won. I fought a 27-year-old. I was 17. My parents had to sign a waiver for me to fight.
Yeah.
I whipped the guy's ass. And I fell in love. Like that feeling of winning was the ultimate high. There was nothing that could compare to it.
Did you fight a lot, like in your childhood?
Yeah. Did you have like a urge to like?
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to understand is like where as a kid, right? Like there's just nothing, and I got in plenty of fights, right? But there's nothing that's like, yeah, I want to go fist fight and get punched.
No,
in the
we
face.
were fist fighting as kids. Yeah, we fought a lot, and we had, like I said, we had these kids that were older than us that we were family friends with us, and we used to hang out every day after school, and they used to make us fight. We would fight them. I would fight my brother. I would fight my friends. We would slap box. We would put boxing gloves on. We would fight, and then we would fight other kids that we didn't know, and which were like real fights. And it was just like what we did. It was like we were quote unquote tough guys or whatever. Yeah. It's just what we did. And all my friends all the kids that I grew up with, most of them are like gone now. we fought, man. We just went.
You didn't mind squabbling. You didn't
No,
mind
we loved it,
violence.
bro. We would go, and then once we got older, like 16, 17, 18, then we were really fighting and getting hurt. I got hurt a lot in the street.
Yeah.
And we hurt a lot of people, you know, and looking back at it, it was fucking stupid because,
So
you
different.
know, we hurt a lot of people. I got hurt a lot too. I got my ass kicked so many times. I would come home all the time and mom would be like, when are you going to learn your lesson?
Yeah.
You know, I'd come home with a broken nose or like a cut on my, like a big cut on my face, stitches or a black eye or, you know, something like, or like a fat lip or something like that. And my mom would be like,
what was your relationship, or I should say, because your parents live in Florida now, right?
Yeah.
So you obviously have a great relationship with your parents.
They're my rocks.
So you being, because I know how it was for my parents when I was just going through periods of my life, but obviously those periods of your life when you were younger and you're talking about selling drugs like as a teenager.
Yeah, they were
assuming that they
knew and they weren't happy, obviously. And then it came to a point where they were like, they couldn't control me.
Yeah.
I hit 16, 17. I started fighting. I turned 18. Now they don't really, I was living in their house, but like they couldn't tell me what to do anymore because I was an adult. And yeah, they would try to like be like, yo, like chill out. You're getting in trouble. I got arrested a bunch. And they would be like, they would try to guide me. And they were always there for me no matter what. They never turned their backs on me. And without them, I'd be dead for sure.
Did they know that, like, were they familiar with addiction? Did they know what path you were on?
They knew I was messing up. And then once I started, the whole doctor shopping thing started happening. And I'm getting like really addicted to pain pills. They knew, like, they were like,
yeah,
you need to get help, you know? And I did eventually.
The fighting and the use of drugs and the fighting. At what point did you feel like there was a disrupt there when the moment you stepped into that gym? Did you feel like a disrupt with the uses of drugs? Did you feel like you started
getting high?
Just getting high.
And then like what happened was that I would like go away and then I would stay abstinent for a while.
Right.
And then something would happen, I would relapse.
Because it would affect your fighting, of course. It would affect.
So I would go away and I knew I had fighting. I wanted to fight.
Yeah.
And I knew I was good at it. So I would fight and I would stay sober or clean for a few months, 6 months, a year and a half. And I would fight. I would win. And then I would relapse.
What caused the relapse?
One time I had a shoulder surgery, took some pain pills, relapsed right away.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to AA. I wasn't working any sort of program to keep me sober. I had no like network of people that knew like, all right, this kid is sober or trying to stay sober. Let's keep him on track. My parents knew, but they couldn't control me.
Right.
And then I would use for a few months. And then, you know,
and you're actively fighting.
Yeah. But
like,
I would be like, the only time I really
amateur fights at this point.
I went through my whole amateur career getting high.
Wow.
And then once I turned pro, anytime I fought, I was sober or I was clean. You know, I wasn't in AA, but I was.
What got you from New York down to Florida? Because I'm assuming that there was some type of.
My best friend died of an overdose on drugs that I gave him. That fucked me up. I was using Oxycontin heavily. My parents knew I was fully addicted. I went to Ultra Music Festival in Miami. I went on like a rager bender and I brought a bunch of pills with me. By the time Ultra was over, I ran out of oxys. So now I'm dope sick.
You know, I didn't know much about oxy until I watched that documentary Painkillers.
Yeah.
It's called Painkillers? Yeah, Netflix.
It's a good one, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
yeah. So I came back to my girl's house because she was living down here in Florida, my wife, and she had pain pills because she had wisdom teeth surgery and she hid them because she knew.
She was keeping from me.
And I fucking found them. And she looked to see if they were still there. And she was like, you stole my pills. And she kicked me out of the house. And I had nowhere to go. So I called my parents. They're like, well,
and I'm
in Boynton Beach. And they were like, My parents were like, look, we're here to support you, but you can't come home,
come home.
until you get help. All right, so I went to detox and I went to treatment, and that was like the start of my trying to get sober. I left that.
What year was this?
2011, or sorry, October 12, 2000, no, yeah, 2011 was my first treatment. So I didn't stay sober. I came back to New York. My girlfriend at the time, my now wife, broke up with me. I went right back to using. Then I had went away for a while. I stayed sober for for 20 months. I went to a long-term treatment for 6 months. It was a therapeutic community, which is like a state-run facility.
Yeah.
I was there for 6 months. Came home. I was sober, or I was clean for like another 14 months, and I was fighting, and winning as a pro. And then I had shoulder surgery. I relapsed. I used for like 4 or 5 months, and I did the same thing. I went away again. I stayed sober for about 1.5 years, and I was fighting. And then I had a big fight, and I ended up having surgery on my face. I broke my orbital. I had to have a plate put on my face, and I was in the hospital for like 5 days, and they were giving me morphine the whole time.
Yeah.
So I came out, and naturally I went back to opiates. And then I used hard.
You were down here the whole time?
No. I was back in New York at this point. Yeah, so I got sober in New York. But then so throughout this whole time, I was in that treatment. I was going to detoxes. I was ending up in, I went to psych wards, crisis centers, homeless shelters. I was panhandling. I was doing all this crazy shit.
But you had this glimpse already of like.
But I knew what success felt like.
Yeah,
I was fighting, and I had like an undefeated record as a pro fighter. But I was a junkie. I was shooting dope, and I started shooting coke and crack. So my life was very out of control, and I was like, I would go into psychosis, and I would be hallucinating because I was up for days, and then I would end up overdosing. I would wake up in a hospital, I would go away, and then I would come, and it was just a vicious cycle.
How's the drug testing at that point? Is there drug testing a lot? Like
No, before UFC, they would only test me like day of the fight, and it was random. I might not even get tested.
But even like these type of, I mean, what you're, opioids.
Yeah, they weren't. They were only
like
testing for. Yeah, they would test for that fight day.
But even that though, it's only like short.
Yeah. But either way, like I never fought as a pro when I was high, so I didn't have to worry about that.
So you knew like I got to start getting clean now because I got to fight.
Well, I would go away and I would stay clean until something bad happened, and then I would, because I wasn't doing AA or going to like work in a program and I didn't have a support network in place. As soon as something bad would happen, I would off to the races. And then finally, Christmas Day, 2015, I had my last overdose. And I woke up in the hospital the next day, dope sick. I left because I was super sick. I got high one more time. I went to detox that night, and I stayed sober. I've been sober since then. So 8 years and a few months I've been sober now.
That's amazing.
Wow. And this time I was like, all right, I'm going to do what they're telling me to do, Go to AA, find your higher power, who I call Jesus.
Absolutely.
God, the number one thing in my life.
Let's talk about that. Like how important is faith to you? Like
it's really the only thing that matters
to
me.
Where was that when you were going through it? Like, were you raised? Were you raised in a family that like No,
there was no.
So you came to AA and they told you better find something higher than yourself.
Yeah, and I was like, God, what are you talking about? It took me years.
Right.
So my first AA meeting, I was 22, and I didn't grasp it till I was 27. Which is when I finally decided, all right, I'm gonna do this. But like the months leading up to that point, I was going to meetings, but I was getting high at the same time. But I was trying to like stay sober, and I had this fighting career, but I was addicted. So it was like I was fighting tooth and nail to like just stay afloat. And I had this guy, Tommy, who eventually became my sponsor, trying to help me. And he would get me into treatment, he would get me into detox. I would leave, I would relapse. And then finally, after that one overdose, it was Christmas. I hadn't been home for weeks. I missed Thanksgiving. I was like living on the street in motels. And I just couldn't do it anymore, man. It was a terrible time in my life. I was alone for days.
Yeah.
And I was on the street by myself, being a junkie. And I was like homeless. And I'd go, I'd go into detox. I'd come out just to like get out of this cold weather. I would just go away, go to the hospital, go into state-run facilities. And finally I said, all right, I'm done with this shit, man. So I went to detox, Flushing Detox. It was terrible. State-run facility. It was disgusting, bro. There's people in there shitting on themselves. But it worked, man. And I actually still have contact with like one of the nurses from there.
Wow.
The guy like really helped me. And from there, they sent me to this place called Creedmoor, which was a psych ward. But they had a drug treatment center on the property. And most of the people there were like, it was drug court, basically.
They were ordered,
Yeah, so they were all mandated. I was there voluntarily. So it was a shitty place, man.
Yeah.
Disgusting. But I kind of like, I remember being in there after like 3 weeks and I was starting to feel better. And that like Christmas cheer was like still in the air because it was like January 5th. They still had like Christmas decorations up. And I remember it snowed like 5 feet one night. And I remember thinking like staring out the window, watching the snow pile up and thinking like, oh, I'm fucking stuck here, you know? But I was like, I had a hoodie on and a pair of sweatpants. It was like a Friday night. I remember it vividly. And I was like warm and I had like a belly full of food and I wasn't dope sick anymore. And I remember thinking like, this place is disgusting, but it's really not that bad, you know? And I had nothing, bro. I was broke, zero money to my name, no credit. Any credit card I had was ran up. My driver's license was revoked, not even suspended, like they took it away from me. The car that I had was impounded or something. I don't even remember what happened to it. I had nothing.
Rock bottom.
Rock bottom.
So you're at this point. I mean, this is the get back.
That was my get back.
And I remember, where do you go from here?
What's that?
Where do you go from here?
How do you stand back up?
So God, and I started listening to this guy Tommy, like, you gotta fucking go to AA.
Yeah.
You gotta do these steps. So I did the 12 steps. I listened to what he said. I went to meetings. And
you've been down here the whole time?
No, I was this was back in New York.
So explain that, because again, it's for people that don't know, for those that are listening, like where we live here in South Florida, it's really weird, but it's a pocket. There's a strong community of
like
those people who are in recovery or actively seeking recovery.
And
they got down here.
And fighting.
And fighting.
Yeah.
But they got down here in some way, shape, or form because of
addiction. Yeah. So I ended up back here. So I stayed sober for about 4 years. I've been sober for this whole time, but I was sober for about 4 years. I moved to Milwaukee to train at a gym over there.
Okay.
And I was there for about a year. I started talking to my ex-girlfriend, Christina, who's now my wife.
She's still down here at the time.
She was living here in Boca. And we started talking. And she's like, I'm only going to talk to you about God. And that's it. Like, there's no reason for us to talk. I don't want to get back with you. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to get back with you either. But like, I want to make amends to you. And like, let's just be friends. Okay. So we're keeping this relationship going. And then I came back to New York for Thanksgiving one year to see my parents. And we just had started talking again. And she happened to be in New York because her family was there. So I'm like, yo, why don't we meet up? Okay. And then we just got back together. Like, I was like, yeah, I want to be your boyfriend. She's like, all right. And that was it. She came to Thanksgiving with my parents that year, and we've been back together ever since. And so she was still living here though. So about 6 months later, I ended up making the full move down here. That was 2019, I believe, or the end of 2018. And I've been here ever since.
It's really weird how, for a person of faith like you, like us, how God brought you to this specific place, right? Where so happens your wife is, so happens this pillar of a community of those who are seeking recovery are, but then kind of like the UFC mecca of the world. Like it really couldn't be a better fit for somebody who's in your situation, constantly trying to better themselves and stay focused on this task of being a champion of the UFC.
Yeah, so coincidentally, when I was here before, I trained with a gym, which is now called Kill Cliff. It was the Black Zillions at the time.
Yeah.
And when I was training in Milwaukee and it wasn't working out for me there at the team that I was at, it wasn't a fit for me. And my wife was down here, so I was like, I might as well just go back to my old gym and live with Christina. And that's what happened. So I came down here, I started training with them, and ever since then.
So what was the crossover from, you have this spiritual awakening where you're like, man, this is a way better life for me, right? Like this is, maybe I can at this point in time, is the UFC even in the question, or are you still amateur fighting?
No, I got into the UFC in 2017. So I had been in the UFC already for 2 years when I moved down here, or a little over 2 years. And so that's it. And I've been in the UFC since.
So what promotions were you going through as far as from the amateur to pros?
I don't even remember. Amateur, I remember one league was called New Breed Fighters, but most of my pro career before UFC was for a league called Cage Fury Fighting Championships.
Yeah.
It was like the regional circuit in the tri-state area, like New Jersey, a lot of the New York guys, Pennsylvania. I fought a lot of guys from Jersey. Most of the people I fought were from, at that time, were from Jersey or PA.
So talk to us about that first time that, like, hey, the UFC's knocking on your door. You're about to get your first fight. Like, how was that experience for you?
Like in the UFC,
were you
or
sober?
the
Were you sober at this time? Were you using when you were first got into the UFC? Were you using, or you were sober?
No, I was sober in the so my whole UFC career, I've been sober.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for a year before UFC, I got sober. I've been in the UFC for 7 years.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
How was
I got
that first?
sober. I had like 3 fights when I got sober.
And was that difficult though? Because again, like you're probably experiencing all these different types of feelings and emotions for the first time in your life that you're not choosing to get high on, right?
No, I don't want to say it was difficult. It was better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was sober.
But that's a brutal journey, bro. Call it what it is.
Fighting was way easier when you're sober.
Yeah.
So I'm in shape. I'm disciplined. And I had like all the motivation in the world to like get to where I wanted to be. So I get out of treatment. 6 months later, have my first fight. I win by head kick knockout. Then I fight like a few weeks later. I win again. And then within a year, pretty much basically a year after getting out of treatment, I defended my title for Cage Fury Fighting Championships on the Dana White Looking for a Fight show. Dana White came to that league, that fight night, to watch me fight. I was the main event.
Yeah.
And me and Bill Algeo, who's also in the UFC now, doing really well, fought each other. I did really well. I won, and Dana signed me that night.
Wow.
And then I've been in the UFC ever since. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That's amazing. And how many fights have you already had in the UFC as of today?
14. 14. Yeah, my next one will be my 15th fight. My 15th UFC fight. Yeah.
I got a question for you. You know, a lot of times when we have thorn in our sides, you know, scripture Paul talks about that thorn in your side, right? Everybody's got a different thorn. And a lot of times the scripture, the Bible also talks about being able to pick up our cross daily and crucifying our flesh to the cross and picking it up and fighting that battle each and every day. As a man, do you still struggle as far as making a decision every day, or has God just fully taken it from you? Or do you struggle every day saying, you know what, I'm going to need to not choose that today.
Like getting high, you mean?
Yeah.
My urge to use has definitely been lifted.
Yeah.
I don't wake up and have a bad day and think, oh, I'm going to fucking go get high.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I don't act out in other ways, though. You know?
Yeah.
And all my character defects. So I get rid of using, right? Now I'm left with using God or AA to cope with my feelings, right? But I don't have drugs anymore, so I still want to use other things
Right.
to make me feel better,
Fill
or
the
make
void.
me feel,
Yeah.
or to get like serotonin or dopamine fixes,
that dopamine
you know?
hit.
Exercise.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Could be fucking pornography.
Yeah.
Could be gambling.
Yeah.
Could be buying stupid shit that I don't need that I think is going to make me, oh, if I have this, I'll feel better. And then I just regret it. Why the hell did I just buy this expensive thing?
Instant gratification. It's
It
just,
does nothing for me.
nah.
And then there's other shit too, man. Food, sugar, so many different ways that I use things to try to like just satisfy some sort of void, whatever void I'm having, when God really could just fill that whole void. But it's not instant. You have to seek him nonstop
Yeah.
and be in his word. So it's hard
Right.
to always be like yesterday, my wife was like, why the fuck are you spending money, we were talking about before, on fucking crypto? You don't know shit about crypto. And I'm like, I'm trying to make money over here. And she's like, why don't you just trust God? I'm like, trust God? I'm like, I still got to make money somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What am I going to just sit back and money's going to appear?
Yeah.
She's like, no, Jared, that's not what I mean. And I'm like, well, that's what you're making it sound like. I'm like, I still have to put in effort and action to make shit happen.
That happened.
Faith without works is dead.
But she's like, Jared, like, it does happen that way. But you got to like earnestly seek him.
Right.
And it's the hardest thing for anyone.
It sounds like she's been a real,
a
real like stepping stone and like a rock for you in your faith.
Without her, I'd probably be dead.
I mean, because you
even
said,
in sobriety, I'd probably be dead.
But you said there was a point in time where like if it's not about God, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, which is amazing to me. I think that's an incredible thing.
I didn't last that long because she couldn't resist me. But
her heart was in the right place. She was saying, look, there's nothing else to talk about.
She's still the same way.
Yeah.
She's like, God, Jared. And like, she's always like trying to like reel me in. Not always, but she has to reel me in always.
Yeah.
You know, because I'll start like.
Yeah, behind every strong man is a stronger woman. I know that from myself.
For me, that's true.
And yeah, I'm the same way, bro. I mean, like I have these incomplete things in my life that my wife completes for me, like when it comes to organization, but also holding me accountable as a man of making sure that she has security in her life. And so I totally feel you on that, man. I think you're in a great opportunity to continue to strive because you have such a strong woman.
Yeah. I agree with you for sure. And without her, I don't know where I don't want to say that I would be like getting high again, but I would definitely be doing way more stupid shit.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. In terms of what you had to deal with as a kid, you think that affected maybe your relationships in ways as you grew, like the way you communicated or even the way you trusted people?
I mean, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And
like I acted out sexually like crazy.
Oh,
I don't know if it was like proving to myself like, yo, you're not gay, or like, I don't know what it was. Like,
it completely changed the way I acted sexually and like how I had sex with people.
Right.
And for sure, it made me feel like the same way. Like, oh, am I gay now because of this?
Yeah.
But
And then
it wasn't a choice.
About,
I didn't make that choice. Someone made that choice for me.
You talked about hanging out with older people, right? So like, those older kids were exposing you to things as a younger kid, talking about that type of stuff, right? Like I didn't even, it made me feel like I was running more for them. Like my secret was going to get out and I was going to be judged. And like, I had control over what happened to me.
Yeah, definitely. Like I never wanted to expose that to anyone until I eventually did.
When was that?
I told my wife. It was the first person I told when I was like 23. And I used it as like a way to like, we were in the middle of a breakup and I'm like, I used it as like a pity party. Like, oh, she said, why are you like this? Like, why are you getting high? And I'm like, oh, this happened to me as a kid and I can't get over it. And then I was like, wait a minute. Maybe this is why I get high.
Wow.
So it kind of like came out as like a way for her to like try to feel sorrow for me and be like, oh shit, this kid's fucked up. Like he's got some issues. It's not his fault, mate. And then I realized like, oh wow, this is something I need to deal with.
Yeah.
So
what do you think you've had to do? Because again, for me, I had a lot of like hate. Like I can vividly see this person's face.
Yeah.
And it took me a lot of years to like learn to love myself again and learn to realize like I was just an innocent kid, right? That really had no control. But where have you found it along the way to like have peace? Because we talked about it, like I had to learn to forgive this man. Otherwise I was never going to be able to like, and I don't know if it's like forgive is the right word, but
no, I don't think it's the right word. Not for me. I'll never forgive him. I was going to try to kill him. And then he got put in prison.
Wow.
So he got caught in a pornography ring.
Wow.
So I never got a chance. But I had to like move on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went to therapy. I spoke about it. But I think it's also just like something that happened to me that I have to deal with, and that's it. Like
how good do you, or like, I don't want to say good, how freeing did it feel though, even though maybe the time that you said it and it came out? Because I'll be honest, the first time that I ever admitted it, I was sitting in a treatment center and it was like, maybe this is why, right? Like it was more of just like a, and I said it not even realizing maybe that really was the issue. But how freeing did that become once you acknowledged it and started to be more willing to just
like speaking about it, definitely, and like learning how I use it as a way to self-medicate, start learning about it. But honestly, man, like people are like, yeah, I have closure with it. I'm like, closure?
Yeah, I feel that.
I'll never forget it.
Sure.
I'll never be like okay with it.
Yeah.
But like, I think at one point or another, you gotta just be like, fuck it, man. It happened to me.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, what am I gonna do? Keep using it as an excuse to be a little bitch?
Yeah.
No. Fucking it happened to me. All right, I'm over it now. So time to move on. Yeah, it happened. I thought about it a lot for years and years and years, and I don't even give a fuck anymore. I really don't, and I don't have any sorrow like forgiveness. No, fuck that guy. He should be killed. I think anyone that has raped or abused, I think should be put to death. It's just my opinion.
Absolutely, man.
The
thing about forgiveness too, like for instance, for me, like DA, detective, so many people, my own defense attorney, all betrayed me. And I spent all this time as a child molester in a prison, had to fight for my life, had to do all these things. The thing is, I chose to forgive these people that did to me. Not for them. I don't care about them. It was for me to move forward. It was for me to let go and say, you know what, I'm not in this mental prison anymore, right? And a lot of people, they have their own definition of forgiveness, but I think for me, it's like, I don't necessarily care what happens to them. I hope they find salvation in a sense that they can accept what they've done. They are.
Did you sue them?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I sued him because of course I needed, dude, I mean, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to my mom sold her home, right? My mom sold her home that we grew up in, to pay for a defense attorney that ultimately did not represent me. she was conflicted because she had previously represented my best friend who actually did do it, and multiple different sex charges. She used to represent his brothers, right? So like I've got all this pent up hate, and it messed with me, man. Like when I got out, I could not stop thinking about it. I couldn't be comfortable. I couldn't move on. I tried to do jujitsu, and I just, you know what I mean? Like I was like, oh, I'm learning how to hurt somebody now. And it's like, I wonder if I could use this to people that I hate, you know? And now I got to a point, man, where I knew that why am I treating people that I love? Why am I just like off the wall? Why am I on pins and needles? Why do I lash out? Why do I feel uncomfortable? Why do I have a dark cloud over my head? Why can't I fully feel free? And it's like, I'm kind of still in prison a little bit, you know? And then now I'm like,
that's definitely a different situation, man.
Yeah.
Getting wrongly convicted and then to be exonerated and let out of prison is like completely different than, I wouldn't fucking forgive those people either. Fuck you guys.
And the thing, bro, I have to wake up every morning because I do think about it, bro. I do think about, it's like the old saying, it's like the old man, it's like he could be dead, but you know, he could still come back, you know, from the grave. Like I've had to bury that man multiple times, and it feels like, you know, I don't have a drug addiction. I've never done drugs. I've probably smoked weed once when I was in high school. It didn't do anything for me. I don't have that thorn, man, but my thorn is waking up every day trying to live as free as possible, not thinking about the people that did this to me. And do I deal with it? Yes, but I deal with it in a sense that I take it to the cross every day. That's how faith is big for me. And I know it's probably how big it is for you, because I see a lot of the anger, you know, that I have in y'all with y'all situation. It's so wild because this happened to you guys. Y'all are victims of this. And like, I got painted as a monster, right, of the person who did this to y'all.
Yeah.
So it's like, now it's like, golly, it's wild. And so, yeah, man, it's just, yeah, man.
The whole topic is a lot and it's heavy, but the reality is the shit's happening every day.
Yeah.
You know, it's happening to boys, to girls, to children every day. And it's really sad, but the reality is there needs to be more men like you, like me, that are willing to just be like, hey, look, you're not alone. Like you're not. You're what you're going through right now. I've went through it. He's gone through it. You're not alone. You know, and I think it's so many times that when you're young, you don't realize that. Like you think it's like only me. This is only happening to me.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But, you know, man, I just feel like looking, like seeing the world and like how people react to things. Some people are going to get it and some people aren't, man. Some people are going to be able to move on and heal themselves or quote unquote heal themselves. Like, I don't think I'll ever be healed from it, but I don't fucking care anymore.
Yeah.
I'm over it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't
change
change
it.
it.
That's it.
Can't change
now, time to move on and enjoy my life.
And I think that's
So,
really the only answer.
That's it. That's all you can do.
That is the answer.
Like when I see people like, all right, we get it, man. It happened to you. But like, all right, tell us what you did or how you deal with it in a positive way. And I think that's where, you know, some people just don't have that mentality though. They'll always be like poor me type of people. And it's like, oh, you know what? No one gives a fuck. And that's the bottom line, is that the rest of the world doesn't care. And only until you die, go to heaven, it's going to be that way.
Right.
Until you meet God again.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely live in an imperfect world. Are you the type of person that becomes attached to things easily?
Well, it depends.
Are you the type of person that can be that, if you feel like you're attached to something, can you detach yourself from it and just move on?
It depends what we're talking about.
Well,
give me an example.
The reason why is because like when I was in prison, one of the biggest things that I saw is so many people being attached to things and they feel like they have the obligation that's theirs. And then so what happened was that a lot of people that can move on in life and say, hey, dude, it is what it is. I can't control it. It's things that happen. Evil happens. bad things happen every day. All we can do is just move on. You've detached from being attached to something that you're dragging with you, like a ball and chain. You can just take it off, dude. I mean, you can just take it off.
That's what AA's for, bro. It's about,
Yeah.
there's a book called Drop the Rock, and it's about getting rid of your character defects. Like, are you judgmental? Do you hold resentments against people or anything, against things or institutions? Do you have some sort of other addiction besides drugs? And like, so once you get to this book, Drop the Rock, you're already, you let go of drugs and alcohol, but now you're still left with yourself. So there's dry drunks, and then there's people that are sober. Like, someone that's doesn't drink anymore but doesn't work a program is probably miserable because they're still acting out in all the ways that they did before, just without alcohol and drugs. But when you get sober, you got to start getting rid of your resentments.
Yeah.
So things that happened to you in the past, like sexual assault or what you went through, you got to let go of it. Like you said, ball and chain. You can't drag it around forever. Your fucking ex-girlfriend cheated on you. You're, whatever it is, you can't stop fucking gambling, or you have all these other issues. You're judgmental, or you're like you get attached, you're clingy, like you get attached to things. Like you have to that's like the meat and potatoes of AA and NA. Fellowship is to obviously don't drink and drug. That's number one. And to drop the rock.
Do you ever feel like AA is like they took the Bible and they simplified it and they were like, this is kind of the 12 steps
was given by God.
Right.
Like, divine.
If you read the 12 steps,
program.
it's telling you exactly what the Bible tells us to do.
It's the meat. It's the
meat of the potatoes.
It's the most published book ever.
Yeah.
The big book behind the Bible. And I don't think that's a fucking coincidence.
No.
Because God was like, all right, first you really got
to
read this book. This is the number one.
Yeah.
But here, for all you people that are all fucked up, this is for you guys.
This is y'all's lane right here.
Yeah. But it's funny though, because step 6 and 7, which are the most important ones, by far one of the most important steps in the whole book, is only like a page long. But then they wrote all these other books, Drop the Rock, and then there's something called the Ripple Effect, which are all about step 6 and 7, getting rid of all your past traumas and resentments and things you're holding against people and whatever else you're dragging around with you.
Let me ask you this question, because being a public figure, right? Being somebody who is seen on TV, considered, right, a professional athlete, and what some people would look at it and get starstruck by, right? Was that ever a struggle for you, being in the program and like kind of feeling like that sense of judgment in the beginning of like, maybe they know who I am and this is like kind of a little bit weird?
I don't even fucking give a fuck about what anyone thinks, bro.
Yeah.
I really fucking don't. And I'm just a regular guy.
Right.
That's it. I'm just a regular dude, bro. I just fight in a cage for a living, and I happen to do it in the UFC. So I'm in the spotlight sometimes.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to say that people like, when I meet young people, they're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like they want to be, but like, normally people are pretty cool, man. Like, and it's not like, I'm not like, I'm not fucking Tom Brady.
Right.
Yeah, I'm in the UFC and I'm a professional athlete, but, I feel like I'm just a regular guy.
That's one of the best qualities you could have, man, because that humility.
There's a lot of dicks in sports.
The what?
There's a lot of dickheads.
Egos.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, guys that I'm like, this fucking guy, bro. What? Because you're a fucking football player?
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. They're all...
I want to talk about your UFC like career a little bit, because obviously I'm sure a lot of our viewers will want to know and have questions, but what has that experience been like, and what is it really like being in the UFC? Because you hear mixed things, right?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
it is a business, and
yeah, of course.
you're still underpaid. Call it what it is.
I mean, I love fighting, bro, and I love the UFC, the way the staff handles everything, the way they make the event feel. It's like you're fucking like this is the real deal, bro. Like,
Bro, you're in the Coliseum. Like that's how I look at it. It's like you guys are about to go to war.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. We're modern day gladiators.
Yeah.
Legit.
I mean, yeah, I've had ups and downs in my career, but I'm grateful and I love it. So, and I mean, I love fighting. I love training. I love competing. I love the whole grind, and I love everything about it. And yeah, like, do I wish I got paid more? Of course. So does everybody.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I still make more money than most of the population though.
Yeah.
So I can't really complain, you know.
Right. What's been your, I don't even know if this is your favorite fight. What's been the one fight of your UFC career that you
Probably
feel
my
like,
last one.
Yeah.
My favorite fight, yeah. I've had some big wins. Some pretty cool fights, but my last win in Madison Square Garden.
Let's talk about that.
I was born in Manhattan, raised in Queens. My grandfather fought in Madison Square Garden 3 times. I used to train at Henzo Gracie's, which was literally 2 blocks from the Garden. So I used to walk by it every day. And obviously we're going to talk about how I used to shoot dope in Penn Station, which is underneath Madison Square Garden.
That's
which is
the
it's a transient area. So the Amtrak, all the subways, the PATH train, they all meet there. So it's like a huge hub for, and you can go to different states from there. It's like and go all over the city from there. So it's a very transient area, and there's like a lot of homeless people, a lot of fucking, and it's 24/7, never closes. It's always going. So I should take the subway, and I would get off at the subway there, and I'd be like, oh, I gotta get high. I'd run into like one of the public bathroom in there, get high, and then I would walk out, see the Garden, and then I'd go train. And
you ever say, you know, I'm gonna fight there one day?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I would always be like, one day I'm gonna fucking fight here. And then I remember first time UFC came to Madison Square Garden in 2017, and I was like, I gotta fight here. This is like.
Do you think you knew? I don't mean to cut you off, but do you think you knew like the whole time, like I can make like that? You getting high was just holding you back from the other side of what was going to happen in your fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it. Yeah.
And the second you let go, all of a sudden it's like these doors start to open for you.
100%. Always
MMA
knew that I couldn't shoot dope and fight in the UFC.
Right.
MMA was illegal in New York for a while, right?
Until 2017, and then they had the first fight there, and it was it Connor? No, it wasn't Connor. It was the main event was George St. Pierre versus
That's right.
Michael Bisping. Joanna Jędrzejczyk fought Rose Namajunas, and TJ Dillashaw fought Henry Cejudo.
Yeah.
So 3 title fights that night in one night.
Wow.
It was the first event at MSG for UFC.
Kickoff.
And I was there.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I was already in the UFC. I had 1 UFC fight. I was 1-0, and I'm like, yo, I got to fight here. And I didn't make my MSG debut, my New York. I never fought in New York up until this past November, and I finally did. I fought an Olympian, Marco Madsen, and I knocked him out. He was a silver medalist, Greco wrestler, Olympian, and I knocked him out in the first round. So it was.
Who was your toughest competitor that you have?
There's different ways to explain that. My toughest fight or my toughest.
Going the distance, banged you up a little bit.
I would say probably Bill Algeo.
Yeah.
That was I fought him for 4 rounds. I fought Bill for 20 minutes. And the way they did it was a title fight. So it was 4 rounds, but if you were up 3-1 or 4-0 on their scorecards, then the fight would end. If it was 2-2, they would go sudden death, one last round. Whoever wins that wins. But since I beat him all 4 rounds, they stopped the fight right there. But I fought Bill for 4 rounds. He dropped me in the first round. And I headbutt him by accident. He was bleeding everywhere. We were tired and we beat the shit out of each other for 4 rounds. It was a great fight. And now we're buddies.
Your last fight was against
Marco Madsen.
So the fight before that was the Patty Pillman fight.
No, it was Bobby Green. And I was winning that fight and I got headbutt and they called it a no contest.
Wow,
yeah, I was winning. I was beating him too, whipping his ass.
That's right.
And then he headbutt me and I got dropped.
That's right. I remember.
And they stopped the fight. They called it a no contest. So no one won.
Yeah.
Before that was Patty.
What was that like? Because that was over.
Yeah, it was fucking
Ireland,
disappointing, bro. It was what?
It was in Ireland, right?
No, it was in Vegas.
Vegas.
It was a fucking shit show.
Yeah.
I won clearly every round.
I mean, you were in complete control the entire fight.
Complete control. And
he knew it. You see it when you watch it on the TV. You see in his eyes, he doesn't have the old Patty swagger.
There is no way that he watches that fight and says, "Yeah, I won this fight." It was a close fight, but I won. No, fuck you.
Nah.
No fucking way do you think you won that fight. Yeah. It's just impossible. And they all know.
But what is that like? Because bro, you
it was very disappointing. And I was fucking pissed off for months. I'm still mad about it. And the silver lining was that my following went up like 5 times or 4 times.
Yeah.
I went from like 115,000 followers to like 550,000 in the last year since I fought him.
Right.
So that was like a silver lining, but that doesn't do me much favor.
Like, it's so, I feel like it would be so frustrating.
I have a loss on my record and I didn't get, and I only got half my paycheck. So yeah, it sucked and it was fucking bullshit, but it's all right. It is what it is. God's plan, right? That's the only way I can look at it.
That's the cost for the passion, bro. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I think maybe I'll fight him again.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, he's coming off.
He definitely deserves it. I mean, dude.
He just whipped Tony Ferguson's ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just won. He'll probably fight someone else. I'll probably get another fight, and then maybe we'll fight again to settle the score, you know? I would love to fight him in London.
Yeah?
Yeah, why not? That would be amazing.
They won't let that happen again.
Maybe over there they would.
Well, yeah.
Being that he's from there.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But like, I won't let it happen again.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I'll close the show. So.
If that happens, we're going to try our best to be there because I want to see that.
So I want to know how, and we'll wrap it up here, but I want to know how do you handle that side of things from losing, like, in getting, because it's so long, the training process to get there is so long. You know, it's like, it's a training camp.
You gotta take it, man. You gotta roll the punches, bro. Figuratively and literally. So, what am I gonna do, bro? Way worse shit has happened to me. And will happen to me. So, it's another one of those things. What am I gonna do? Fucking bitch about it forever? I can't. For what? It's not gonna change anything.
Yeah.
The past is dead, right? Like, you cannot change anything in the past. So, why bitch about it? And then the future is just a made-up reality in your own head.
Yeah.
So all I can do is be present, try to be present. That's really hard for me also. And just try to be better right now. What can I do right now to make my chances of being successful higher? So
that's one of the best approaches you can have in life, because I said this in the last podcast and I always say it because it's so true to people like with your story where you've had blows after blows after blows after blows. It's a victim mentality has a little to do with becoming a victim and has a whole lot to do with staying a victim. And that whole let go and keep moving, that's where you get an opportunity to be on the big stage, to fight the best fights, to continue to keep moving forward. And that's what this whole thing's about, bro. And so, man, we want to appreciate you so much for being here, bro. And like, if you got one message to the whole world right now, as far as like with everything that you've been through, from your story to the pain that you've risen from, light casted upon your darkness, you turned your pain into purpose, right? You're turned triumph from tragedy. What would be your number one just message to the world right now?
Find God and have faith no matter what. That's the only thing that matters, is having faith that what you're doing will work. And obviously, you have to work hard. Don't be a jerk off.
Yeah, don't be a jerk
If
off.
you're doing shitty things are probably going to happen to you. But if you're being positive and you're in the light, I don't think you can really be denied.
Yeah.
You know? But God and faith, man, it's where it's at.
That's where it's at,
For me,
man.
at least. That's my opinion.
That's the answer.
There's a lot of other people who might think otherwise, and that's fine with me, because I don't give a shit.
It's so simple, but it's not easy. And it's like the moment you can understand, man, like it is simple. Like these are the monumental, fundamental core qualities and beliefs that you need in everyday life. And I mean, you wear it, like I said, you wear it in your appearance, bro. Like there's no BS I handle. I mean, it just keep moving forward. So that's awesome, bro.
To the future champ. Thank you, my brother. Sorry about the wrist.
Oh,
man, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Guys.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Get Back podcast. We hope you enjoyed this message. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, and follow the Get Back podcast on all platforms. We hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and see you next time. Thanks.